So talking about your business, right? Like you said, you're a doctor. So what was the core idea behind Suburban when you just started off? What was the spark that led to this
Right.
venture? Yeah.
The spark for anything in life for me is excellence. Whatever you do it well or then don't do it at all. For me, it's all or none. There's no half-hearted approach. So even if I have to come to chat with both of you, I have to make sure that I do it really well, or then I don't do it at all. Uh, it's the clothes that I wear, or it's the cooking that I do at home, and I have to invite you on that
Yeah,
soon.
yeah.
uh, I make sure I do it well, and that is what the philosophy is there with everything in my life. So when we set up Suburban Diagnostics, the idea was, and this is more than 30 years ago, so the diagnostic industry was still evolving, I would say, and most diagnostic lab services were largely in hospitals. Privately, there were not so many. I thought that if I set up a diagnostic lab, can it truly be world class? Can it truly be something which can be compared with anything in the West? And that is the objective with which we started. And the tagline that we put up at that time was creating higher standards in healthcare.
Okay.
That was the objective, that what can we do to continue to pushing the boundaries and creating higher standards.
Mm.
And I would like to believe that in some way over the last 30 years we have lifted the level of diagnostic standards, not just in Suburban but across the industry, because you push each other, right?
Yeah.
And overall, I think the standards of diagnostic services have significantly improved across the industry over the last 30 years. That for me is perhaps the most satisfying outcome
Nice.
of creating higher standards in healthcare.
But doctor, now going back to early days when you decided this idea came to your mind and you wanted to compete with the hospitals, you did you find it difficult at the start to compete with these players who are established in the market? They have probably more resources when compared to you at that time. Was it difficult and challenging? And if so, like, how did you maneuver through them?
So I was not looking to compete with hospitals. Actually, I thought it was a great opportunity
Okay.
because since diagnostic services were largely in hospitals, I still remember when I got married, and I got married before I set up Suburban. I had to do a blood test before I got married for a particular condition. I went to Bombay Hospital all the way to do a blood test, and that's what sort of triggered that.
Hmm.
Why do living in Andheri I have to go all the way to Bombay Hospital? And I think it was an opportunity because of the fact that there were labs within the hospitals. Can we have labs outside hospitals? So I think it was an opportunity for me. But was it a challenge? Of course. I mean, it's always
Hmm.
challenging to start something new. I had never run an enterprise. Neither my wife nor I, and my wife is the co-founder
Okay.
of Suburban. Neither she nor I had ever run an enterprise. So everything was learning on the job.
Hmm.
And that is why I think when the introduction you said from one location to 250 centers, it took us 10 years to go from one to two.
Okay.
So those first 10 years
Hmm.
was learning on the job.
Hmm.
What I call is I did a practical MBA. So, I learned everything about running an enterprise during those 10 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of failures, lot of challenges, lot of hardships, but everything was a great learning for me. I mean, I'll give you an example.
Please.
So we had this patient who was a diabetic, and he was a graduate from IIM, IIT.
Okay.
So best institution, so top level management consultant. He and I somehow became good friends. So he would come back in the evening to pick up his reports, and he would sit with me and he would say, "Doc, show me the reports. What does it show?" And I would discuss his blood tests with him. And then he would tell me, "Doc, let me see your reports." I said, "But I haven't done my tests." He said, "I'm not talking about those reports. I'm talking about MIS."
Hmm.
I said, "What is MIS?" I said, "I know what is MISS
Hmm.
because I have to write miss some in the name of the report."
Hmm.
He said, "No, Doc, MIS, Management Information Systems. You don't know that?"
Hmm.
I said, "No, I don't." And that was a learning for me that you can't just run a business or run an enterprise without looking at your
Data.
spreadsheet, without looking at data, without looking at numbers. Are you making money? Are you not making money? Are you profitable? So these were all learnings for me. I had no idea. As a doctor, you don't learn MIS, right? So it started from such basic things. Today, because of those 10 years, I can have a conversation with a finance professional like you guys. I can have a conversation with a sales and marketing person. I can have a conversation with an HR person or logistics or supply chain. I learned all that on the job. So that was perhaps, it took me 10 years to go from 1 to 2,
Yeah.
but then from 2 to 15 took another, I would say 7, 8 years. And then 15 to 250 was the remaining part of the journey.
Was delegation a big part of it? Like after you started expanding to multiple centers, did you get better in the skill of delegation as well? Because that's a very important skill set in the world of business as well.
So when we started our second center, our first center was in Andheri and our second center was in Kandivali. So which is 16 kilometers north of Andheri. So I used to manage the Andheri lab and my wife used to manage the Kandivali center.
Oh.
So I guess delegation in that sense happened automatically because both of us, were there. But then I think she managed that center so well. She brought in a team of female professionals. So it became known as that female center. So Kandivali actually gave us the confidence that this is a model that we can scale.
Yeah.
And the first pathologist I hired, so until the second center, I used to do everything myself. But then it took a toll on my health. And I also realized, so there was a very important lesson that I learned, that I used to sit behind the microscope and look at every patient slide myself because that is what I was trained to do and I was good at it. I also realized that is where I'm comfortable because I'm secure behind the microscope because that is my area of expertise, right? So if you are a chartered accountant, you're very good with balance sheets and things like that. So then my father told me once, he says, "ये तो अच्छा है, you are doing a good job sitting behind the microscope. But do you think you want to create more of you sitting behind the microscope and you coming from behind to the front of the microscope? Then you can build more centers." So it took me 1 year to hire a fresh pathologist. Took me 6 months to train that person. Took me another 6 months to let that person start reporting independently. So it was difficult for me to let go.
Yeah.
But once I got that confidence and comfort, and I was able to move from behind the microscope to the other side, then I was able to create many more microscopes and put people behind. So today at Suburban Diagnostics, we have close to 50 full-time pathologists. And when we merged with Dr. Lal Path Labs, today there are more than 300 full-time pathologists. Dr. Lal, like myself, is also a pathologist. But letting go of your comfort zone is only where we allowed the growth to happen. So as they say, right, growth happens outside your comfort zone. It's very true in my case.
And a follow-up question on this is, you were bootstrapped, correct?
Yes.
You were raising money post, like way later?
No,
or you
bootstrapped is, I don't know if there's a word lower than bootstrap, chappal strap, or something. I don't know if there's a word like that, but the wind beneath my wings, like most of us, is my parents, my father. So he invested in the first real estate that we started the lab in, and he helped me get seed capital. So we got 23 lakhs of seed capital from Maharashtra State Finance Corporation. So for that, you have to put in 25% and they give 75% or 80% they gave. So that's 7-8 lakhs plus the real estate at what my father put in. And then we got the balance from Maharashtra State Finance Corporation. And that is how we really started.
Also, what about the machinery? Like, so disclaimer, I'm a Suburban client since the last 10 years, me
Right.
and my family.
Right.
So I've been to your Jew branch. I also have the guys coming home.
Right.
Like as a family, we believe in preventive healthcare, and every 6 months we do the full body checkups via your clinic.
Thank you.
So those machines that I've seen in the clinic, right?
Yeah.
Just if you can tell us and the audience, how expensive are those, and are these machinery imported? Like, to be called a world-class clinic,
Yeah.
you need to have the best engine, right, in the clinic. So what is the story behind that?
Yeah. So when I was studying in the US, before I started Suburban, I got access to truly world-class equipment. And I said that, there's no reason why I can't have the same in my lab in India. That 23 lakhs that I raised, right? Most of it I used for equipment that I got from the US. Not realizing that it's not just about the equipment, but it's also the people behind the equipment or the company that supplies you the equipment, but is just as important. So unfortunately, that equipment did not have great after sales support.
Oh,
So within a year of buying those equipments, all those equipments failed.
Oh,
all of them.
All of them failed
Oh,
because they
that's
were
a
not meant
big setback.
for the Indian ecosystem or the
okay.
Indian environment, and they didn't have trained support staff. They didn't have after sales support out here. I still retained those equipments in the loft for the entire duration as a reminder of what mistake I made, so I don't make that same mistake again. I then started to work only with reputed global brands, uh, whether it is Boehringer Mannheim, which became Roche Diagnostics, Abbott, Siemens, Johnson and Johnson, Becton and Dickinson, Horiba, Sysmex. These are all truly world-class names. Roche Diagnostics hosts something called as India Days in their headquarters in Switzerland. So they called 5 of the most prominent customers from India, and I was one of them. I'm very vocal about what I demand from these suppliers because I want to make sure that the customers or the patients get the best. And since you were saying your family is, dependent on the tests, as is everybody. See, for me, uh, the bottom line is always quality. So quality of the results, quality of the experience, quality of the service, quality of the reports that you get, everything. I only think about quality. So getting that equipment, the best equipment in the world was, there was not even a second thought to it. And I always fight with these global MNCs that don't treat India like a third world country because our expectations are first world. Our expectations are not third world. So please don't give us anything which you don't give in the West. So I would make sure that we only got the world's best equipment. I could not afford it initially. So the first Boehringer Mannheim, now Roche equipment, was actually a refurbished equipment that I got from a second-hand supplier, and I had to strip down the equipment, rebuild it with one of the technicians from scratch. But that gave me so much of understanding about the equipment that I knew every part of the machine myself. From there to where we have today. Today we have, the Ferrari's equivalent of diagnostic equipment. Whatever is there in the world, it's there with us. So the quality of the reports that we generate is processed on truly world-class equipment, second to none. What you get here, in fact, there was somebody who came from Europe to visit and audit our lab. They said, your lab is perhaps better than many of the labs we see in Europe.
wow.
So that was a big testament for me. And then we went in for something called as accreditation. We were the 67th lab in the country to undergo something called as NABL, which is National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibrating Laboratories,
Okay.
which is not mandatory even today. Uh, Today there are close to 3 lakh laboratories in our country, but less than 2,000 labs are actually accredited. So it's not even 1% of the labs that are accredited. Of the NABL accredited labs, it's a handful, less than 100, which are accredited by College of American Pathologists. So we are one of those few labs in the country that has both NABL and College of American Pathologists or CAP accreditation. So we continue to push the boundaries, testing ourselves against the world benchmarks, that we are not good enough just to be a good lab in Andheri West or Juhu, or in Mumbai, or in Maharashtra, or in Western India, or in India. We are equivalent with any best lab in the world. And that's the quality that we continue to give to our patients no matter what.
I have a business question over here. Now, when you're pursuing quality and excellence in like every particular domain, whether it's your technology that you're using, or whether it's the paper printout that you're giving, or it's the service staff that you have, is how difficult is it to manage your costs? Because sometimes, like, in India, you have the jugaad mindset. Arey, jugaad ho jayega, like, fix this. Like, it's like a makeshift solution for something. So, in that scenario where you had to focus on quality, how did you resist the temptation of like submitting to that jugaad mindset? A, and B, was there resistance from people around you that like, अरे क्यों कर रहे हो ये सब, हो जाता है काम?
Darshan, there's only one way I've thought about my enterprise. If it is good enough for my family, only then it is good enough for my patients.
Oh.
If it is not good enough for my family, it's not good enough for my patients. If I did jugaad, would I do jugaad with my own family? Would you do jugaad with your own family?
No.
That has been my way of thinking. If the toilet is not clean enough for my father to use, it's not clean enough for the patient. If my wife cannot lie on that bed because the bed is dirty, it's not good enough for a patient. If the quality of report is questionable for my family, then it's obviously going to be questionable for the patient.